A brief but complete telling of just how extraordinary mental and mystical adventures take place. Some people trip and fall downstairs while others trip and fall up. A chap approached the head librarian and asked, "Why, if fiction is happy, do they change its name to humor?" And she replied, "Who the hell do I look like?" Consciousness is a private, personal affair, thinking, public, and collective. A legendary neural conversation. He who kills the king must become king. Do you mean that he can become king? No, that he must. For a mythical hero to be truly heroic, he must have no mother or father. Do you mean that he may not have none? No, that he must not. Conventional continuity contributes not to creativity. Thus are all true heroes loners and unheroic in their own time. Does that mean that time may not be sequential? Indeed, and heroic time cannot be. Ergo, the slayer of the king perforce becomes king, and a new consciousness regains the throne. There's something to be said for everything, which is the only way that civilization keeps going. Two guys of partial philosophical bent were sitting under a tree yakking about the nature of man and certain of his institutions, and one of them said, "It's bad enough to be 3,500 years behind the times, but not to realize it makes it even worse." And the other guy said, "Are you sure worse?" And the first guy said, "Well, no, but it makes it something else." All right. If you think about where you live, you're inclined to talk about where you live. And we all know where that can lead. The religious. Those who have discovered a great prize that amounts to nothing and now want to share it. But, sir, couldn't the same be said about any aspect of civilization? Yes, Sergeant, it could. Yeah. Thank you, sir. No problem. Moral. Never let priests have guns, nor the military dresses or candles. It sounds reminiscent of Canadian expatriate. Well, the ordinarily use. We're talking about performance art now. Can you dig it? Huh? You get it? You see? Huh? The ordinarily use friends mainly as mirrors. A more conscious man would make better use of his personal companionships, particularly, I might add, as regards him and his own mind. To what advantage does one let their own thoughts act as either a complimentary or a condemnatory reflector of what they are, when part of what they are is in being born with such an internal mirror in which they had no hand in grinding? Birds of a typical feather normally stick together so as to more efficiently crash and burn. While those not on a routine flight might keep each other well in sight for reasons having naught to do with satirical self-destruction. Daddy, is that how you can tell that it's a city pool, that all of those drowning try to get you to jump in and join them? Any bird can walk, but only real ones fly. I wonder if any linguist is going to write me about the word satirical, since there is no such. Well, there wasn't until tonight. How an improper understanding of time can eschew man's view. It has recently been discovered that the reason the ancient city of Troy cannot be located is because the Trojan War was actually fought in 1925. Forget yes or no. A real mind won't take anything for an answer. A viewer inquires, is it hard to be both civilized and more conscious? No, the trick is getting over believing that there is a possible conflict. You think you fell for it?
Good.
As an animated cartoon was playing, a man mused, the fact that I can sit here and be entertained watching drawn, non-existent images of actual creatures, I suppose helps explain my toleration for my own thoughts. I sure do want to pause and say, think about that one. But I won't. Heroes are two things, imaginary and genetic echoes.
Yeah.
Civilization is operationally synonymous with agriculture, the wheel and fire, romantic love and family responsibility, credit and double entry bookkeeping, but it's mainly synonymous with speech. Addendum. It is, however, in its more advanced forms, functionally equatable with collective intelligence, whose connection and dependence on speech is far too well known to have to be noted here. By the by, some supportive news for the timorous and the uneasy. The timorous and the uneasy. Civilization always comes to praise civilization, never to bury it. The self-protecting tendencies of the mind are such that those who really aren't hot shit are given to saying that they are. A viewer writes, I have taken to heart your comments regarding the folly of criticism and have benefited thereby. But I still find myself uncontrollably annoyed seeing crudeness and regression celebrated as entertainment. What gives with me? Sounds perchance like progress on the prowl. Civilization forces people to act like they enjoy being civilized. Thinking has a landscape. Consciousness is the universe. Probably the best way to deal with reminiscing is not to do any. Perhaps the easiest way to handle personal memories is not to have any. If you'll be nice to wild animals, they'll be nice to you. Unless you let them in your house. A decent, concerned, honest local homeowner objects. But my house came with a vermin already in it. My, cluck, cluck, and tish, tish. How many sweet times have we heard that one before? Moral. In spite of the facts, reality, and other crap hands being dealt and held to at this particular poker table, that's the title of the moral. He who has an excuse to play can live to be normal another day. As he forced his way off the bus, he said back over his shoulder, "Cop me by mail, for I won't be back this way again." I don't know, folks. Does it get cold in the desert air, too cold for allegory? Or have you never realized that there has not been, not even a rumor of one important mystical figure ever to come out of either Vegas or Tahoe? Huh? Am I right? Caught me by mail. I don't know. Can you tell us, how can you tell a civilized person? They act real serious. How can you tell an uncivilized one? They act real dumb. And an inquiry presents itself to us from a viewer. Is being dumb and being dangerous the same thing? Yes, to a certain extent. In that the dumb are dangerous, are a danger to the intelligent and to other dumb people. Another nod to life's alternatives. If you can't be famous and envied, make people feel sorry for you instead. The cerebral culinary made cutesy. As they both attempted to lick their chops, the mind said to consciousness, "Yum, yum. If I'm on the menu, I'll be over for sure tonight." There are among civilized men those who believe that they have something important to say, but who have nothing to say. But for them exist heroes and collected quotations. A modern definition from the combined worlds of literature and the media. Personal interviews, an abbreviated form of bad fiction. A sociologist with a semi-sweet sausage sat and mused. What did people look at before there were TV cameras? One man allowed a stray cat to adopt him, but not so his mind. One man says, sometimes on a bus I forget where I'm going. Same with my mind. Caught me by mail. Collect. This is getting seriously interesting now. You are getting a shot of these, aren't you? Do you realize when it comes to artistic, meaningful statements, I'm being upstaged by inanimate objects? But I'm one of the first ones to say justice always prevails, so. Collective intelligence is a public well from which all may drink. A few gag. In the personal ads of the Neural newspaper was spotted the following. Man with glib tongue seeks woman with glib ear. Purpose to forge one non-glib understanding. One man states, I will not take responsibility for what I am until someone can show me that I conceived myself. On the 8th day of local creation, when speech married uncertainty, their first wedding night produced religion. And their second, all political ideologies. The dance of the struggle for power then left the bedroom as all parties scramble for the lead in the missionary position. Lay down and I won't have to comp you by mail. Civilization. Civilization. Children playing doctor but with their clothes on. The question, can you have hormones and still be heartless? The answer, you can have hormones and still be heartless. Another chapter in our continuing saga of how history could have been. When the first civilized man first defecated and looked down the ground at what he had done, he said, my God, I've had another little person. And damn if he wasn't almost correct. Some people enjoy historical anecdotes and some don't. And this from our viewing audience. I have heard you decry the serious people of the world, the everyday, the ordinary, the middle class, but it seems to me that it, in fact, might be exactly people like you who are the ones taking life far too seriously. What do you say to that? Dear viewer, you may be onto something. Historically, you only hear of overweight mystical heroes. The others were so light that they drifted away before they could be seen. Another idiom from our Human Distinctions Spotter's Guide. When they don't know what they're doing, but are doing it just the same, ordinary men won't admit it. When they don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it just the same, sophisticated men will proudly or humbly admit it. Yeah. In the same circumstance, a more serious, a more conscious man wouldn't say anything about it. On the last day of the convention, the keynote speaker presented what he called a maxim for our times that went like this. The power neglect has on success is marred only by the appearance of man. And a chap with breath ablaze stood and cried, "My God, what time is it anyway?" The truly civilized place is one in which you can have stress delivered directly to your door. To your home. In attempting to deal with the youthful rebellion of his son, one father said, "What you need are some adult, mature ways to have fun, but there aren't any." Having a mind is itself the supreme mental challenge. If you want to look at it like that. One guy says, "I'm not so sure that it's accidental that accidents are so likely to happen. When the cheap and simple sing publicly, they'll use pre-recorded background tracks. An original individual bypasses all such annoyances by simply doing a solo act. Civilization is to thinking as consciousness is to consciousness." Well, at least one thing about it. A man with the aim is never alone. Okay, two things. He's never totally bored. All right, three things. And he's never frightened. All right, four and more. One day, some local conditions asked life, if civilization crumbled, who would suffer the most? Priests, politicians, or just the average person? And life replied, "You still don't get it, do you?" The only adventure sufficiently heroic to be pertinent to consciousness is one of the individual, not of the societal collective. From last time when we were so interrupted, we had covered an item that noted that one way you could tell when someone was civilized was that a person would be capable of or express easily guilt and remorse. And I pointed out that a more conscious man, in fact, would find those very same signals that are at the heart of being civilized, would find them to be unenforceable BS. The use of the word unenforceable, I just started on, but it might be of some interest if you would consider a bit further. By looking at it on the basis that civilization itself is like unenforceable bullshit. It's another way of considering also what we were talking about, that in a quite real non-judgmental sense that all of civilization is invented. It's man-made as opposed to being necessary physical intrinsic conditions under which or by which, in line with which one must live without any great deviation therefrom to be able to live. And on that basis of comparison in civilization, the whole intellectual world of man, all the humanities, the arts, the social sciences, everything that is civilization is invented, contrived, made up, with no judgment intended. It simply is. But no way to look at, not to prove it, but no way to look at the situation, that just how invented it all is, in a way in which man does not. And it also gives rise, as it should, to the great continuing conflicts about how civilization should be run or improved, etc. Don't lose it, I'm getting to the point. You're lying. Oh, that's why I'm lying. Is to point out that all civilization is unenforceable bullshit, and what's that saying is how invented it is, because it is the admission, in a sense. Men, you can punish people for being uncivilized. I was bringing up murderers, about certain types of so-called heinous crimes where the person seems to suffer no guilt, no remorse. They just, did you do it? Yeah, I did it. Maybe even smirk. And that's considered to be, a bone-chilling anomaly. I'm sure we wouldn't want none of us be locked in a steamer trunk with a person on a sojourn across the Atlantic. The thing about civilization, the particular view I was trying to get you to consider, is how it is, back to the point of how invented it is. And invented is not really a good word. That's why I keep kicking it around and trying to soften it up. Man-made is a little bit better. But say all words, as they are supposed to, already have built-in connotations. You're already bringing your own steamer trunks with you, no matter any word anybody says. Man-made. Oh, man-made, eh? But what I was trying to get at was some cracks wherein there are no particular words that you might look at this. Civilization is invented in a particular way that you can see on this basis. That men cannot, they can punish those who will not act civilized. That if you murder and we catch you, then something could happen. You could at least run up some horrendous attorney fees. Yeah. Being funny. We will put you in jail. We might even take your own life. Collectively, man can certainly punish uncivilized behavior. But notice this, through no act of will, through no decision, can they force other men or themselves to be civilized. Is that the world's longest preface? Try it again. Would you think about it a second? It's the kind of thing that the human mind does not normally work. Does not normally chew. See, people continue to debate, how could we improve society? Why do we have people who are such exempt entities, evidently? Or whole classes of people, whole strata of society acts uncivilized. What shall we do? What new program will we come up with? What kind of research can we do? What kind of new laws can we pass? And as they're supposed to, it's not in particular stupidity, it's just run-of-the-mill stupidity. To realize, if they did, remember those two guys that were partially bent? One of them said, it's one thing to have not learned anything in 3,500 years, but then not to realize that makes it worse. And it doesn't particularly make it worse, is what my joke, that they're not exceptionally stupid, they're just routinely stupid, just everybody. But to realize that, wait a minute, none of this has any specific effect. It does not do that which it purports to do. That's why we have, you remember here in Oklahoma, we have, what was it, about 110 feet worth of laws here in the codified criminal code of Oklahoma, and they can all be narrowed down to what? 1, all right, 10, for those of you that like biblical times. And after that, they have to keep passing laws, more and more laws. And it's simply, it's not an attack, but if you had any sort of point-blank consciousness, you simply realize none of this has the desired effect. Well, what we need then is more government programs. Same thing. All right, what we need is, I don't know, we should teach better morality. It's all the same. But no one knows it from this particular view that even knows that no one can make themselves or anyone else act civilized. That is why I was using the term that it's unenforceable bullshit. But see, the little trick was, you were supposed to have had a few days, if you were considering it anyway, when I laid on it, to say, well, it's not unenforceable, because we do enforce it. That if you do act uncivilized in the broadest sense, if you do steal your neighbor's cow or Cadillac, then we will arrest you. We can enforce morality, which is civilization. We can enforce the law. We can enforce our dictates as to what constitutes civilized behavior. But remember, in a broader sense, it is unenforceable. They can enforce a law, they can punish someone, But man cannot make himself civilized. Those who pass the laws, which is not the point, but I'm afraid some of you are missing the point. Those who make the most impassioned speech, be it politician or priest, about what we should do to take care of this particular unsavory activity going on that's uncivilized. The person doing it, proposing it, can't stop it himself. And even if he could fool you and say, well, yeah, I can. Like perhaps he's proposing a sexual legislation, and perhaps he's a eunuch, which is always easy. He'll say, hey, I live by this. Well, I want you to see the point. I want you to see the point. It's why I said that you cannot enforce it in yourself or others. You can if you're going to play this game. You guys are still going to work with either or and or. It's not that. Because we're not picking on this one individual who may have his privates missing in action and therefore says, well, we should all have tighter sexual morality and legislation, and I'm the first one to be in favor of it. And you find out, he didn't have a choice. It's not just that. It's not that one guy. It's that it cannot be enforced from one person to another, from one person to a group, from the whole group to the one person. That's why I say it's unenforceable. And I'm trying to get you to see something else. It's not an attack on morality or the weakness of the judicial system. It is that they say we are civilized, and here's how it should be. And that it's real. And they claim that it has validity, that it has actual validity, either on the basis of religious morality, that they're appealing back to some religiously based system, or just doing on the basis that humanity itself is basically civilized and decent. We all are, and it's because of extrinsic circumstances that make some of us uncivilized. Which is, to put simply, is not true. But to be civilized, it must sound true. Civilization, if you're going to be civilized, see, civilization will make you say that you believe what civilization needs you to believe. It's why I've been trying to get you to consider around that in one sense I can bring up that everybody knows that the kind of things I'm talking about, they know they're true. But they've got their choice, sort of. It's like civilization, that is life, says, don't you ever admit that's true. And so then, some smart ass like me with nothing to do pops up and says something, blah, 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 and says so-and-so's true, and you think, God damn, that is true. And it's like you feel, you don't know what it is, but it's life's breath going, what was that? And you go, so you just shut up. Because it wouldn't do you any good anyway. Ordinary people, they went, Jesus, that's true. Wouldn't do you any good. So you can't admit it. I'm not surprised. It's between me pointing out something and somebody saying, my God, that's true. Between that and life going, you just start to stamp and go, hallelujah. That's Southern philosophical. It's synonymous with eureka for you non-Greeks. If it's between me pointing out something and somebody going, my God, that's just as plain as hell. I didn't know that. And I see him begin to stir, either figuratively or literally. And then suddenly it's like life goes, oh, there is no contest. I mean, if they override life and react to what I said, then they don't count anyway because they're nuts. So if they're sane, if they're fairly sane, and it's almost as stirring like, good God, that's true. And life goes, what? And you go, because if you shut up, you'll pass for being civilized. Well, how can that be? It's because it's all invented. That you're civilized if you act civilized. And that is not a self-serving it is not an obvious statement to ordinary people. Because they believe that there is a reality behind being civilized. Which is the only reason they can keep going. You remember there was an Im tonight that pointed out that there's something, it said there's something to be said for everything. Which is the only way that civilization keeps going. Because they have to say something, and what they say is that there is a reality behind civilization which in fact is non-existent. Which doesn't matter, but that's why it cannot be changed at some radical level. Because it has no basis. It has no foundation. You can't go in and radically alter something that has no radical. Wait a minute, this structure seems a bit shaky. Why don't we work on the foundation? It don't have a foundation. And so all you can do is keep working on the apparent, quote, structure. And ignore the fact, wait a minute, no wonder it's shaky. It doesn't have a foundation. What is working on the structure going to do? Ah, shut up.
Yeah.
Which is what life says. Life goes, what? And you go, okay, I'll work on it. You know, this whole thing's kind of getting shaky, this whole civilization. And it's like life says, well, go paint up on the 4th story. Go paint it. And you want to think, what the hell's painting going to do when the whole structure is about to fall? And life says, you know, well, all right, we'll go up and rewire. Do some, you know, rewire some of it. And you still want to say, wait a minute, it strikes me this thing doesn't have a... And life goes, what? Now you're about to say, it doesn't have a foundation? And life goes, huh? And you go, okay, where's the paint? Where's some wire cutters and some, you know, screwdriver? Well, I'll leave that. I'm just trying to get you to see if it... that I specifically, and for a purpose, use the term unenforceable bullshit. Because it seems absolutely otherwise. Because it seems as though if there's one thing that civilization must have is an arm of enforcement. Which is the same thing as the law, if you never thought about it. There's no such thing. The law doesn't exist. It's considered to be a moot law. Because sometimes it slips up. In a legislature somewhere, they'll pass a law saying it'll be against the city ordinance to plant flowers within 4 inches of the sidewalk or the right-of-way. But if they don't give a remedy, if they don't give a punishment, if they just say it's against the law, it's not really a law. I don't mean just philosophically. They've had to deal with it in appeals before that. Well, it's not a law. You know, you shall not kick your neighbor in the shins. That's not a law. You have to say you shall not kick your neighbor in the shins, and then it has to list the potential punishments. That if you do, if you're found guilty for violation of this law, you are subject to, by the state, of being put away for 6 months, fined up to $200. But if you just say it's against the law to do so-and-so, that is not a law. There has to be some collective, state-supported, civilized form of listed retribution, price you will pay. So, when I say that civilization, in a sense, from a more conscious view, is unenforceable bullshit, what a person should think, any civilized person, could go, well, that's, you know, boy, that's got to be really an oblique metaphor. Name of symbolism, that's got to be a damn metaphor. But it's not. Because you would think, well, civilization, if it is one thing, it is an enforcement of civilized behavior. Yeah, it can punish you when you don't do that which seems to be civilized, or which they say is not civilized. They can punish you. But you call that enforcement? Think about it. It's unenforceable in the sense that if civilization was real enough to be enforced, they could will it into being. Men could will themselves into being civilized. Or they could simply state in some way, all right, let's decide all the things that are not civilized, and probably somebody would finally come up with the 10 Commandments or some version from China or somewhere and go, wait a minute, let's just, you know, scrap the criminal code of Oklahoma and let's look at the 10 Commandments, actually 5 or 6 of them, let's live by that. And they all go, you're right. Boy, have we gotten off the wrong track after all these years. And there they all sit, modern day Thomas Paines and Jeffersons and Ben Franklins and Julio Hirschfield maybe was in there.
No.
It was Bunky Oldham. Anyway, he was late. And so they would look at each other, being the intelligent, civilized, truly civilized people, and they'd go, that's it. You're right. I guess, the Industrial Revolution. You know, and women began to wear, low-cut dresses and stuff. Guys confused since, over the last 3,500 years, we've tried to get civilized, and sure, we've done well in technical areas, but we should go back to the simpler time when men specifically, directly saw what being civilized is. Don't steal, or just do unto others you'd have them done to you if you don't do that. And they would all, if there was that kind of validity, that kind of enforceable reality to being civilized, they would go, that's it. And it would almost be after that, nothing to be said. They would sort of probably tacitly go throw away all the law books They would go out in the street. Somebody would, they would elect a spokesman, want them to go out to all the people and say, well, here's what we decided. No offense to our forefathers and all the great work that our legislators and our presidents and kings have done in the past for the last 3,500 years, but it struck us that what we can do is just get down to don't steal, don't take your neighbor's property or his family, don't mistreat anybody, and etc. And that was it. That's all we need. And the people, by now, after all of these years, the people would go, that's a fact. How did we lose our way? How did we lose sight of the simple reality of what civilization would be, what civilized behavior? You're right. And everybody would turn to each other that had bad words in the past, that cheated each other, written bad checks. Everybody would turn and shake each other's hand. They'd hug each other. And lo, the people would have a heartfelt celebration and become their own brother's keeper and wife and sister and live happily, etc. Is that the way it works? No. Why? It's because civilization is an unenforceable piece of bullshit from certain views. It is unenforceable. I was also using, if you recall, along that same line I was pointing out, once you realize that in a real sense, on your own, not because I said so, but in your own way to realize that everything that civilization, which is the tangible manifestation of man's intellect, they are one and the same operationally speaking. Then once you realize that, then any form of criticism, even just the teensiest bit of criticism about civilization, do you realize what a fool that makes you? That you are criticizing something that is invented. You're talking about, wait a minute, you people think this structure sometimes is shaky. I've just realized I can see a quiver up there on the 114th floor that no one's ever seen before. What's wrong with you idiots? And you don't realize it has no foundation anyway. The damn thing's floating. It's a mirage. And you jump up to holler, wait a minute. I propose that we have stricter building codes. Do you realize the folly of that? Once you see what it is. All right. Consider this, once you see that, the folly of criticizing civilization out there in all forms, all of man's institutions, all religions, everything that is above the simple survival line. Everything from here up is invented. It is contrived. It is man-made in the grandest sense of the word. It is the crown jewel of man's intellect. But you realize the folly of criticizing any part of it. Now, rather than pointing out there in a civilization, we've already pointed out, is simply an operational synonym for the human mind. Now consider the same way of you critiquing human thought, your own. I don't like the reflections of me I see. And you were born with this mirror in which you had no hand in grinding, and I'm being charitable to say it is a mirror. It's a mirror in the same sense as a structure with a foundation. If you take your thoughts to be you, if you take your thoughts to be in any way representative of what you are, then you, by the same token, are back to taking civilization as being something real and enforceable, because then you will think, well, I'm enforceable. Which, if you're ordinary, you're supposed to, because if you don't, you wouldn't try to do what? Engage in self-improvement. That's true. And then where would we be? Using we generically. Well, all forms of self-improvement. From trying to be religious to trying to increase your educational level to getting a better job. All of that is the same thing as being more civilized. And again, do you see, and this is not an attack on man, because we're not back now to those kind of religious things that man is nothing and he's a fool and he should be humble and he should be on his knees, realizing his lowly position in the universe, which is another story altogether. But just ever turn around and realize where you are and then think there are people that go out of their way to be humble after this? There are people that won't fall down the floor and go, oh. Of course, those people normally say God or somebody, but they're hollering life, the universe, reality, hollering, oh, have mercy on a poor thing like me, I'm so undeserving. I mean, if there's superfluous admissions in the world, Oh, poor old, okay. It's the same thing in a different suit of what I was saying of taking any part of your thought processes as being you. It's treating them as seriously as people do civilization, as critiquing them. It's like, well, shame on me for those kind of thoughts. It's the same thing. It's trying to make fun of or trying to help people straighten out something that doesn't exist. Which is why it can't be straightened out. Which is why it's alive. See, because we're back to the physical level, you can straighten that out. That is, you can change something at the physical level. Somebody says, God, my stomach hurts all the time. And you hang around a little while and you notice that the man eats rocks. And you say, how long have you been eating rocks? And he says, well, that's all I've been eating as long as I can remember. And you can say, well, if I may be so bold, try eating, and you give him, like a turnip. And say, drop the rocks for a while and see what happens. That can be affected. But, of course, that's not changing. A sane person, his digestive system is his digestive system. And working on it is not going to make you more conscious. It will not change civilization. It will not change the collective march of humanity. It's only here in the thing that doesn't exist. It's only in a thing that's totally imaginary and doesn't exist that you can change it, and it actually changes things. Of course, and if there are any civilians listening to this, and they go, wait a minute, how can you change something that doesn't exist and then say it actually changed things? So that just shows you're civilized. That just shows you're in the boat. Well, all that leads, I was going to make it lead, where I started the recollection tonight, the reference to last time, that a true sign, a real sign of a civilized person is that they feel guilt and remorse of all shapes. And I was using I put out the example of how it has a specific effect on people, ordinary civilized people. The news covers some man who murdered someone, or bunches of people. And if he shows no remorse, it strikes a cold, cold chill. Always has. Well, you don't have to be just a modern news media of them sticking a TV camera in the face of this cold-blooded, indifferent-looking guy that they just saw him. He just killed 20 people 5 minutes before. He just kind of looked. Shows no remorse. And then later in the trial, you figure, well, surely he'll finally come to his senses. And he looks worse. And he's now kind of swaggering. And people, as well they should. It gets a cold, cold, icy hand of the spirit of Poe or somebody up their spine. But how about this? There is, woven through all of what I was talking about and this kind of example of an unrepentant person, a chance to bring up the answer to everything. That should be in quotation. This is a real title I'm about to give. It's the answer to everything. It's the answer to every question. That's better. It's the answer to every question. Let me repeat that, would you? And finally get it straight. All right. The answer to every question. This is, however, outside civilized society and dictionaries. I'll admit that in front in case you hadn't already suspected it. The answer to every question is 2 words. Oh, before I tell you, it's also this. It is also the totally unacceptable answer. So it's 2 answers for the price of 1. Same 2 words, but it is the answer to every question outside civilized areas. But it is also the totally unacceptable answer to any question. Response. And it is, I don't know. I made it 2 words. D-U-N-N-O. Not true. I don't know. But I like, I don't know. A mumble. Our cold-blooded, unrepentant obviously uncivilized mass murderer. They finally, he agrees, they offer to send him, some station will send him free cigarettes until he's executed or something. So he agrees right out. They said, will you do an interview? And they get the sheriff's permission. So they get in, or they get to him. Let's just say he's walking out of his first arraignment. And he's still showing no remorse. Nobody knows why he did. He just stood up in the middle of a room and just shot. Just turned around and just opened up until somebody grabbed the gun away. Finally, somebody gets to him and says, why did you do it? Now you got to listen, because I'm not inferring any dramatics in this. No sarcasm, no particular nothing. Remember, it still almost sans passion as far as you can tell. They finally get a mic, somebody to him and say, tell us, why did you do it? And he says, I don't know. God, that lowers the temperature on a cold chill to civilized people. And it is total, nobody accepts that as an answer. Now, leastwise, you think that's limited to that kind of blatantly uncivilized act. How about something a bit more cozy and middle class? You're sitting around talking to somebody, like a friend, your boyfriend, a girlfriend, relative or something. You're having dinner, and maybe at a restaurant, and you order a particular way they fix up broccoli. And you say, have you ever tried this kind of broccoli? And the person goes, ooh. And you say, well, it's real special. I mean, it's as good as broccoli is to begin with. And they look at you like, what? And you say, yeah, but this is real special. And they go, God, I can't eat broccoli. And you go, why not? And there's somebody and they're real well-traveled, sophisticated, have very hip, wide-reaching tastes and everything from food to music and art. And you go, broccoli? Really? Why don't you like it? And they go, I don't know. That is not an acceptable answer, is it? Now, I'm going to have to drag it out, which normally does not take place between people, but I'm now describing as always what's going on actually in life that's beyond the realm of people thinking about normally. Which, speaking of, it's a totally unacceptable answer. And if I and somebody jumped into this scene and forced the people to carry on, which it will happen many times without my illusionary interference, the first person, you understand I'm picking out broccoli. I didn't mean I know people make fun. I'm just saying it's some food. Let's just say you can understand mashed potatoes. And the person said, I can't stand mashed potatoes. And I'm using that now, assuming that's about as bland, middle of the road. Put a little butter, put a little chives, put something. How can you say you don't like mashed potatoes? What's not to like? And the person said, well, I don't know. And you think, there it is, one of your best friends, and all these years it never came up. And you would start, whether you did it verbally or not, this is the sort of thing that would be well within the realm of civilized life. Perhaps it's portrayed in the movie. And you'd go, whoa, wait a minute, that's interesting. Have you ever wondered why you don't like mashed potatoes? And that person goes, no. But you really don't like them? No, I don't. I seriously don't. And why? You don't know why? No, I don't know. You go, well. You sip a little white wine, and you think, that is interesting. You know what I bet? Well, I didn't doubt. There had to be something. I bet sometime your mother, you can't remember anything about your mother one time forcing mashed potatoes. Well, you see where it's going. You don't normally, this goes on constantly today. And I'm not picking on psychology, of course. The point being, that is a totally unacceptable answer. Now, on the basis of you there and having your friend decline to try this special or to order any mashed potatoes, I know it doesn't seem world shaking. It doesn't seem as important perhaps as those popping up doing cutting wide swaths of taking human life. But both of the answers from both of these guys, the same answer, I don't know, is totally unacceptable. No one can deal with this mass murderer or any murderer. It's not the mass part, you understand. A guy shoots somebody behind the desk at a 7-Eleven store. And they say, well, what happened? They catch him, he walks outside, and the police are there pretty quick, and they grab him. They say, why'd you shoot the guy? You just went there to rob him, right? The guy said, yeah. Well, why'd you shoot him? He had you the money, didn't he? Yeah. Well, why'd you shoot him? I mean, he didn't reach for a gun or anything. He didn't have anything. No, I don't know. Why'd you shoot him? I don't know. That does not go well. You understand? Even if they drag him off and the reporter can't keep it up. Of course, even the reporter, if they left him there, what are you going to do after that? It's the same way as the person sitting there saying, you mean you never eat mashed potatoes? No. Why? I don't know. When I say it's a totally unacceptable answer, if the energy behind the conversation, if the energy driving the parties involved at that particular moment, if it continues to flow, it is unacceptable. That is, no one takes I don't know as an answer. Have you gotten lost within 5 minutes? The title of this was, the title was not totally unacceptable answers. That was the subtitle, or the second half. The real title was the correct answer to all questions. Why are you such an aggressive bastard? I don't know. There's your answer. Once you see it, it takes an absolute, I can say, unreconstructed idiot, which means an everyday idiot, to go, wait a minute, what do you mean you don't know? That's the answer to everything, to every question. Why did you kill your mother? I don't know. Now, come on, she got to have been mistreating you. And if he doesn't answer, at least they go, well, I mean, he is so traumatized he can't even talk about it. But you can say, wait a minute, are you people deaf? You ask him several times why he didn't. He says, I don't know. He looked right at you. And he says, I don't know. Yeah, but he didn't mean that. What does that sensing, that some of you may be hearing something behind that, what does that sort of reflect that we were talking about earlier? It reflects the fact that there is no such thing as civilization. It reflects the fact that everything within civilization presented as cause and effect is just as illusionary as the 114th floor up there swaying in this building that has no foundation. Well, maybe the building doesn't have a foundation, but hey, I see a psychiatrist up on that floor. I see a rabbi. I see some people. I see Harvard up there. But it's still inside this thing that has no yeah, but no, we're talking serious stuff. We're talking serious stuff about my good friend who won't eat mashed potatoes there on the 50th floor. Oh, and down about 2 floors is somebody who killed his mother. And I shouted out to him, why did you do it? Why won't you eat mashed potatoes? And they went, I don't know. Nuh-uh. No, this won't do. What do you mean it won't do? You're shouting fire in a building that doesn't exist. You're criticizing a soup into which you've fallen. That's your imagination. It's too salty. What? The soup. What soup? What are you doing in this soup? I don't know. Oh, no. The man just shot his mother. That's all we know. We walked in and the gun was laying there and we said, did you shoot your mother? And he went, yeah. Why? I don't know. They will find a reason. If it goes any further, you know that. Even if he won't say anything. It's totally unacceptable. And yet on the basis, if you can see that to which I am, it is the civilized, it is the ordinary, it is the intellectual, it is the mental proper answer to everything. But it's totally unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable on the same basis. If any of you can jump right quick, here we go. In all affairs of man, they go, if any behavior that anyone else observes that they have any question about, whether it be, you don't eat mashed potatoes? Or, you killed your mother? Anything like that. Then the question becomes, to a serious civilized mind, then the question becomes, all right, he won't tell us why. He just says, I don't know. So, but all right. Whatever motivated him, it had to either fall into in some way, we don't understand, but it was some kind of genetics, something in his background, something physically in his heredity made him do it, or probably, since he won't talk about it, something in his environment. And you know, no one can split that dance apart. That tango is still going on. No civilized person can take sides. Not serious sides. Think so, well, I don't know. The statistics are weighing a little heavier on the side of heredity than it used to. But, you know, still your ass. Nobody could take sides for the same reason that I don't know is a totally unacceptable answer. But I told you in the beginning, the real title of this was The Correct Answer to All Questions. You can ask somebody, why do you look like you do? And you know that because that's no question. Why do you have such a large nose? I was born with it. Oh, well, that's stupid. But then you say, why in the world are you so hostile? I don't know. First answer people will take. Because to a civilized person, the first answer is really impertinent to start with. I mean, you don't ask somebody why they got a large nose. You know why they got a large nose. Their mother or father had a large nose. I mean, they couldn't help it. Case closed. But wait a minute. Why the hell are you so hostile? I don't know. When did you kill your mother? I don't know. Well, I guess the court we better appoint a psychiatrist. We've got to consider this. The man answered the goddamn question. Your friend. You mean you don't like music at all? Why? I don't know. No. Well, hell, let's order some more wine and that's interesting. Let's talk about it. For civilized people, okay. That is because they don't want an answer. Let's see if we can't get to what the real answer is. That's right, folks. That is, let's look down. There's no foundation. Well, let's go off and talk about why there's no foundation. Then you're all right. Was that all you had to say? Well, I mean, why did you even bring it up? I don't know.